Not only did I not get senior staff, but I'm in matrix. Well, the most interesting thing is that was the best year I had with staff. I made the most connections and I made some of the most rewarding relationships that I've ever had. The next year I reapplied and I was given a senior position. Following that, it was the time to apply to be, it's not a resident site coordinator position, it's called a resource, well it was a resource position back then, but it was full time. And I had been looking at this job for years. And I interviewed everyone who had the job, I had like full pages notes, I was totally prepared, I went into the interview, I was told the interview was great, but I just wasn't what they were looking for. And so I didn't get the job. And I was like, I really don't have another roadmap for this part. And where that led me to was McMaster University. And I actually worked there for a year. And before I got the job at McMaster, which was probably one of the biggest learning curves and most rewarding professional years I've had, I said to my parents I would never move out of Ontario. I was going to stay in Ontario for the rest of my life as an RLC. Well, the next year, a position at the U of C came up, and I applied for it. I'm not really sure what motivated me to do that, but a gut feeling. And I got offered it. And so I said, I'm moving out for 1 year. That's my plan, 1 year. Then I'm going to go back to Laurier, or I'm going to go back to McMaster, I'm going to go to an Ontario institution. 1 year, that's it. 3 years later, actually about a year later, I said, Mom, 3 years max. That's it, that's all I'm going, and then I'm going to come home, I'm going to move in with you guys, and figure life out. That's my roadmap. 3 years later, I left my job at the U of C, and I was like, I really don't want to move in with my parents right now. So I'm going to stay at the U of C and do something else. And I applied for a position for orientation, and I got that position. Interestingly enough, I also said in my first year of university, I would never plan orientation. So this is an example of how, for those of you who are big planners, some of you in this room don't have a roadmap, but a guiding compass. Some of you in this room embrace the whole, I'm just going to see how life unfolds for me, and I think that's great. What I want you to consider more so is that on our leadership journey, our guiding compass is what's going to direct us. And that's about figuring out where you want to end up down the line, where you want to be involved. So when I got into university, I always had an attention to training programs. And I did a couple of training programs with some people that were like game-based training programs, and I loved it. And I thought maybe down the line, that's where I'll end up. And so I've sort of changed that into a guiding compass. And so when you're looking at your future, those of you who have the roadmaps, I want you to consider rather that looking for your next step, consider where life might take you. Because you'd be surprised at what you learn about yourself. And I'm actually in a position that I ultimately wanted. I'm just in a slightly different province. And I stayed despite the cold. The other thing too is that if we're constantly connected to a specific job or a specific role, that doesn't always mean that that position is going to be what's true to ourselves and what's going to allow us to be our most authentic self. But if we keep a guiding compass in our minds of who and what we want to do or what's going to be a good expression of us, maybe not the specific job, but how it would feel if we were in it, that's really what's going to lead us to success and where you're going to be the most authentic self.